I collapsed onto the cold concrete floor, my chest heaving. Every single breath burned like fire. Level 0's endless yellow prison had finally faded from sight, but I didn't feel like a complete human anymore. My throat felt like it had been scraped raw with sandpaper. My tongue was swollen and wooden. My lips were cracked open in thin lines. My vision blurred into a gray haze. My head spun. My arms and legs were completely limp, like every bone had been pulled out. The dehydration was critical. I had used up the last drops of moisture in Level 0's lonely hell. My stomach cramped with empty pain. My heartbeat was weak, like it could stop at any second. Black spots kept flashing in my eyes. If I didn't find water soon, I would end up like all the others, just another silent corpse lying in this freezing warehouse. The dim warehouse stretched out like a forgotten underground parking garage. Gray-white concrete walls were old and stained, covered in tiny cracks and rusty yellow patches. Massive pillars stood in rows like silent guards. Overhead, exposed pipes let out occasional low metallic clangs. The floor was rough and uneven, scattered with wood chips, torn paper, and small puddles of some strange chemical liquid that smelled like burning plastic. I instinctively stayed away. In the backrooms, anything that looks like water is probably a death trap. The air was damp and heavy, carrying a faint moldy stench, but at least the constant buzzing from Level 0 was gone. Instead, there was only the distant sound of dripping water and faint echoes, as if the entire space was slowly breathing. I thought I was moving in a straight line, but the distance between the pillars kept growing wider. Whenever I wasn't looking, the shadows on the walls seemed to... I cursed under my breath, the sound echoing harshly through the vast emptiness. Only pure instinct drove me to keep crawling forward. I had no teammates, no one beside me. I was utterly, completely alone. Just when I was about to give up, I saw 2 stacked wooden crates in the shadows against the wall. They were made of rough plywood with metal straps on the corners and bright orange warning tape. The original text on the side had been covered over by a bold black MEG logo. In the dim light, that logo stood out sharply, like some official supply mark, but with that creepy Backrooms feel. It wasn't a hallucination, it was real. My heart pounded hard, but I didn't have time to think. I dragged my weak body over and touched the crate with trembling fingers. The wood grain felt real. There was actual dust on it. It didn't vanish. With the last of my strength, I pried open the bottom crate lid. The lid creaked open. Right on top lay a neatly folded piece of paper, clean like it had just been printed, with a faint smell of ink. My hands shook as I picked it up, unfolded it, and read under the weak overhead light. Hello, Wanderer. How auspicious that you've made it here. The fact that you're reading this safely is no small feat. Your reward is this specially bottled almond water, courtesy of the Major Explorer Group. Please come find us. We can help you find your bearings and fully explain what is going on. There is still a long way to go. Follow the corridors until you start seeing people. They will be able to guide you to safety. Please leave the empty bottle here with the note so we can refill it. Thanks and good luck. At the bottom of the note was the same faint MEG logo as on the crate. My fingers trembled as I held it. This wasn't a hallucination. This was a real rescue signal from the Major Explorer Group. They had left supplies here. They had left hope. I carefully folded the note and slipped it into my pocket. Warmth spread through my chest, but it was mixed with caution. This was Level 1. Who knew if the someone I met would be a real person or an entity imitating one? Under the note were the life-saving supplies, a bottle of almond water, several sealed cans of food, bandages, a crowbar, and packs of compressed biscuits. I was shocked and suspicious. Was this mercy from the backrooms or another trap? With shaking hands, I twisted open the almond water and drank. The cool, sweet liquid instantly eased my terrible thirst and dehydration. The headache and dizziness faded. Energy surged through my whole body. My mind cleared. The fear eased just a little, and for the first time in this nightmare, I felt a spark of warmth. I opened a can and ate the plain but real food. Strength slowly returned to my arms and legs. I also found a working flashlight inside the crate. Following the note's instructions, I placed the empty bottle and paper back in the crate. The MEG logo glowed quietly in the dim light. Only after my body began to feel better did the true danger of Level 1 suddenly strike. The corridors seemed endless, and any marks I left on the walls vanished as the space itself was twisting and distorting. The fluorescent lights began to flicker erratically, sometimes plunging everything into brief moments of darkness. I knew this was a deadly flicker event. When the lights go out, those entities come out to hunt. A faint scraping sound echoed in the distance, like claws dragging across concrete. I quickly turned off my flashlight and slipped into the wall. I pressed myself against the wall, huddling down with my back against the freezing cold surface. The smell of mold was still strong and pungent, but at least I had found a refuge to catch my breath. I sat there panting heavily, leaning against the wall, my hands subconsciously covering my face. Yet I could clearly feel just how awful I looked. Short black hair soaked in sweat and plastered to my forehead, cheeks and brows greasy and shining, deep dark circles beneath my eyes. My skin had taken on an unhealthy grayish-yellow pallor, dotted with tiny red spots and lined with exhaustion. I looked like an ordinary office worker who had fallen straight from an office building into hell. My light blue shirt was drenched in sweat, clinging to my body, crumpled and filthy. My black tie hung crookedly around my neck. My black trousers were covered in dust and unknown stains. The worst part was my feet. My black leather shoes were completely waterlogged with sweat, the soles severely worn down, and my feet were covered in blisters, making every single step agonizingly painful. I must have been a pathetic sight. A man in his 30s, once a regular office worker, now bending over in a fire stairwell to pick up my employee ID badge, looking like a refugee who had just crawled out of a war zone, my eyes hollow yet full of vigilance. I tried to gather some courage. The road ahead was still long. According to the instructions, I had to keep walking down the corridor until I came across someone. But right then, a sense of isolation crashed over me again like a tidal wave. It wasn't dead silent here, like in level 0. I could faintly hear human voices in the distance. Perhaps other wanderers, or perhaps an MEG camp. But they could also be creatures disguised as humans. Those dullards would mimic human voices, dragging their loose, sagging skin and extending their sharp claws. I was utterly alone.
The lights finally stabilized. I took a deep breath and kept moving forward. The pain in my feet made every step feel like walking on knives, but the after effect of the almond water still kept me going. The corridor seems to twist slightly as I followed the MEG notes instruction to keep moving forward, passing one pillar after another. In the distance, I spotted a light, not the flickering fluorescent ones, but a steady, warm yellow glow, like campfire light from a camp. My heart beat faster. I quickened my pace. The scraping sound came back, closer this time, like something dragging behind the metal cabinets. I hugged the wall as I moved, sweat running down my temples and stinging my eyes. The back of my light blue shirt was completely soaked through. I irritably loosened my tie even more until it was almost falling off. Turning the corner, I saw a red arrow spray painted on the wall with messy writing below, Alpha Base 800 meters ahead. Hope flared up like a small flame inside me, but at that exact moment, the lights overhead began flickering violently again. The entire warehouse plunged into absolute darkness. Only my flashlight beam remained, trembling in the black. I quickly turned it off, held my breath, and crouched with my back against a pillar. In the darkness, the scraping turned into low, heavy breathing, as if someone, or something, was right nearby. Then a voice echoed clearly.
Hey, is anyone there?
This is an MEG patrol. It sounded so real, but I didn't dare respond. What if it was an entity? My feet trembled inside my shoes as the cold sank deep into my bones. With a loud pop, the light snapped back on. I bolted forward right away. At the end of the corridor, a figure appeared. A man who looked just as ragged as me, wearing a worn jacket.
Hey,
he
wanderer,
waved and called out.
Don't run, come with me!
I hesitated for a moment, but the words on the MEG note echoed in my mind. I followed him. He led me through a few narrow pathways to a makeshift camp constructed from shipping containers. Several people were bustling about the camp. Some were handing out supplies, while others were monitoring a makeshift radio. The faint, comforting aroma of food lingered in the air.
Welcome to the habitable zone of level 1.
The man said, patting my shoulder.
You're pretty lucky to have just cut in from level 0.
Go rest. We've got hot water and food. MEG will register you and teach you how to survive here.
I collapsed into a broken chair, hands covering my head. I must have looked exactly like them, exhausted, alert, but carrying a trace of relief after surviving. Still, I knew this was only temporary. Level 1's warehouse was far more dangerous than it looked. The non-Euclidean geometry could swallow paths any time. Flicker events could bring entities at any moment. The loneliness and fear had never truly left.